Now, when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last June, they returned the issue of life to the elected representatives of the people, the federal government, along with state and local governments. They all have a role to play in protecting the sanctity of human life. Now, we know the left is pushing for abortion on demand at all levels of government. In fact, yesterday at the White House, Jill Biden, for the First Lady, held what they called a conversation at the White House on the impact of the Dobbs decision. Play clip number 10, please.
The Dobbs decision was devastating, and Joe is doing everything he can do to fight back. But the only way that we can ensure that every woman has the fundamental freedoms she deserves is for Congress to make the protections of Roe v. Wade the law of the land once again.
Joining me now, live in person in Des Moines, Iowa, not just his voice, but his body as well, is Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who's championed life for more than 20 years in the United States Senate.
Better on the radio, so don't stop watching because of me.
Well, Senator, let me jump right into this.
Sure.
We just heard from First Lady Jill Biden. The Democrats aren't confused about where they stand on this
No,
issue.
they're very committed to their cause, but they're misleading you about what their bill does. Roe v. Wade is not being codified. That limited abortion after the moment of viability. Their bill goes up to the moment of birth with taxpayer funded. This is well beyond what Roe v. Wade allowed in the United States.
You're saying they're not being honest?
I'm saying they're misleading. I like Jill, but to be honest with you, they want us to be like China and North Korea. I want to be like Europe, not a lot, but here.
Okay.
I never thought I'd be saying, I want to be like the French.
They're actually more conservative.
They are.
They're more conservative.
If you
than
live
we are.
long enough, like the guy from Iowa, Bob, I like Bob Vanderplat. Is that his name? I just call him Bob. He said we're going to give people a chance to get their sea legs. I thought that was interesting for a guy from Iowa to say that. But he's right, because there's no sea out here, in case you're wondering. We're going to give the party a chance to absorb what to do next. I know what we should do next. We should fight for the unborn in Washington. We should not turn the city over to the most radical people in the country, who, if they could, would overturn every pro-life law in every state.
Well, invoking Europe, I think of Winston Churchill. We should fight at the state level. We should fight at the federal level. We should fight at the city level. We should fight at the county level. We should fight for life no matter where it is threatened.
Well, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. It's hard to pursue happiness if you're dead. So I think the unborn need you in Washington. And what are we proposing? States can do what they want up to a point. What kind of country do you want to live in, folks? Do you want to live in a nation where taxpayer dollars can be used to abort a baby up to the moment of birth? That's the Democratic solution. Or would you like to be more like civilized people? 47 of 50 European nations limit abortion 12 to 15 weeks. My bill says at 15 weeks, we draw a line, exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother. That puts us in line with civilized world. And that is not radical. What is radical is taking your taxpayer dollars, aborting children up to the moment of birth. 15 weeks would save 55,000 lives. It's not inconsequential. But in Iowa, if you want to do the heartbeat bill under my bill, you can. You can be more restrictive, but we're going to tell people in California and New York, the baby matters. It's not a states' rights issue, it's a human rights issue. What does it matter where you're conceived? At 15 weeks, you feel pain. Why did I pick 15 weeks? The baby can suck its thumb. To operate on the baby to save its life, what is done routinely, you provide anesthesia to the unborn child because they feel pain. Can you imagine what it's like to be dismembered? We're going to fight in Washington on very reasonable ground. All we got going for us is about 70% of the public.
Right. And you and I have talked about this before. As you made very clear, states can go further.
Yeah, here in Iowa you can go further.
Personally, I've always stated this. I am pro-life from the moment of conception, and I've worked to protect all human life. But I've also worked from a point of consensus in legislation that I passed back when I was in office. And there is consensus that has developed around this point when a baby can feel pain and it's sucking its thumb and its picture can be on your refrigerator. that is a point where Americans, as you said, nearly 70% say, you know what, this is where we need to draw the line.
So they say Lindsey Graham is banning abortion in Washington. What Lindsey Graham is doing is drawing a line in the birthing process. I am going to stand up against the idea of dismembering a child at 15 weeks who's capable of feeling pain. 47 of 50 nations are with me. The only people that allow this up to the moment of birth, federally funded, is like the Chinese and North Korea. I don't want to be like them.
You know, it's really interesting that the party of science kind of leaves science behind when it's convenient.
You know, the question is, what's the medical standard of care? If you try to do an operation on an unborn child at 15 weeks, the medical standard of care is to provide anesthesia. Why? You don't want to hurt the baby in the process of saving the child's life. If doctors give anesthesia to save the baby's life, why would we want to sit on the sidelines and watch it be dismembered? That makes like 0 sense. So if you don't want to fight in Washington, don't go to Washington.
I want to play another clip for you, again, because I want people to understand there is no confusion or hesitancy on the Democratic side on this
Zero.
issue. Today, the Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer made press remarks at the Capitol. Play clip number 6.
We will keep fighting. We will not relent. We will not give up. We know history is on our side and are determined to preserve the precious rights that are the bedrock of America.
Okay, you heard it there. He said, we're going to keep fighting for what? Here's what they want. They want to have abortion on demand up literally to the moment of birth. The exceptions, there are no rules.
Right.
You can abort a baby up to the moment of birth, and they want you, the taxpayer, to pay for it. That's what they're fighting for. 10% of the people are with them. What am I fighting for? Being civilized, not barbaric.
We're already getting a taste of where they want to go.
Oh,
we're
totally.
presently seeing Senator Tuberville, Alabama, who is in a head-to-head with the Department of Defense over promotions because the Department of Defense unilaterally changed the policy to use taxpayer dollars to facilitate abortions.
So the DOD is taking taxpayer dollars used to defend our nation to pay for abortions. That's something new under this administration. This is the most radical group of people I've dealt with since I've been in town, and that's saying a lot. They literally have a bill on the floor of the United States Senate ready to be voted on that would make America like North Korea and China. No limitations on abortion, taxpayer funded. That is beyond extreme. It's barbaric. We need to have an alternative to that.
Many Republicans, listening to the media out of the midterm election, said, oh, this is a dangerous issue. This will cost us the election. What do you say to that?
If you're asked about abortion, the answer is not, we need to build a wall. You need to, answer the question. Americans have coalesced around the idea, after the first trimester, limitations are more in favor than they're not.
Right.
The heartbeat bill here in Iowa, you can relate to a heartbeat. Overwhelming support. To the pro-life community, don't be ashamed.
Right.
Don't be embarrassed. Don't be cowered into saying that there's something weird about you. What's weird is aborting children up to the moment of birth with taxpayer dollars. That is weird.
What's hard to explain as well is that for 4 decades, Republicans had championed the protection of human life, and then all of a sudden we get this deer in the headlights look post
I don't mean to laugh, but I thought, this would not be that hard. I introduced a 20-week bill before the Dobbs decision, banning late-term abortions. At 15 weeks, the baby is capable of sucking the thumb, feeling pain. That's why we picked 15 weeks, like most European nations.
Right.
You thought, where is everybody?
Right.
Okay, if you want to be president of the United States as a Republican, here's what you should say. Of course I would sign a bill that would protect life at pain-capable 15 weeks with exceptions. Of course I would. There's the states' rights, people. I respect you, but you're dead wrong.
Right.
No pun intended. If we can't protect life as legislative bodies, what good are we? The fundamental aspect of how to run society is who are you when, how to begin life, how to end life. Everybody in Europe is pretty comfortable with this. There's nothing in our Constitution requiring us as a nation to sit on the sidelines and watch California and New York abort babies up to the moment of birth. That's not a constitutional principle. Do you believe anybody who wrote the document had that in mind? Of course not.
From the evidence, we know that those who actually talk about the issue and run on the issue win.
Ted Budd, J.D. Vance. Listen,
Marco Rubio. About a
was
dozen
great.
governors.
If you're, look, Kim Reynolds here, she's still standing. I mean, we're talking about an issue that is foundational to society. What kind of America do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a nation that would allow taxpayer dollars to abort a baby literally up to the moment of birth, put you as an outlier in the civilized world, or would you like to live in a nation that is not barbaric on this issue? Let states decide up to a point. If you can feel pain and suck your thumb and you're 15 weeks along to becoming a born person, we need to intervene. Those of us in elected office, if you don't feel like there's a need for you to have your voice here, then you're missing a lot. There's nothing in the Constitution requires such an extreme outcome where I have to sit on the sidelines and not stand up for a baby. What does it matter where you're conceived?
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's a human rights issue. It's not a states' rights issue.
Why is Lindsey Graham so pro-life?
It just makes sense to me. I don't go around getting in people's face, but I chose to represent my state. Okay, when does life begin?
But it's more than just representing your state.
I just don't want to live in a country that would do this. This does not make America a better place. The unborn are not the enemy. Why do we not want to embrace a civilized approach to a very complicated problem? What good comes from allowing abortion on demand up to the moment of birth? Does that make us a better people? No, it does not.
Do you think it leads to a coarsening of our society when we allow abortion up until the moment of birth?
If you cheapen life, if legislative bodies cheapen life, then there's no respect for life. I'm not saying it's not complicated, but here's what I'm telling Republicans. When the baby can feel pain, suck its thumb, you're at 15 weeks, people are with you. Don't run away from this issue. You're right. Don't be afraid. Don't let Chuck Schumer scare you away. I look forward to having this debate on the floor of the United States Senate. I can't get one Democrat to pick a week they would limit abortion. I'll do one at 32 weeks, 33 weeks, 30 weeks. Tell me when you would say no. Their party won't say no anytime. If you want to stand up for the unborn in Washington, you better elect more Republicans.
Their party platform is very clear where they stand.
I mean, they wrote it down.
They're not lying.
They believe this.
And this is what they're doing in
now,
practice.
If you're listening to this program and you're wanting to find somebody to represent us in 2024 to be our nominee and our standard bearer, you should insist that they be in the camp of not letting America become China and North Korea. How hard is it for a Republican nominee to look the camera in the eye on the stage against Joe Biden or whoever they pick and say, what you're doing is barbaric? There's a better way.
Actually, we had a candidate in 2016 that did that, and he prevailed.
Well, Trump was great on CNN. He beat the crap out of them on, their extreme. We're not extreme, they're extreme. Just finish the sentence and say, yes, I know how to pass a law. You need 60 votes. Well, here's what I would tell people who tell me about civics. You need 60 votes. Well, you got to have a bill to vote on first. It took us 12 years to get partial birth abortion into law. It took us 50 years to get Roe v. Wade overturned, constitutionally unsound. Listen, I'm from South Carolina. I'm not in a hurry. The guy I replaced was 100. You need to be like 100 to get anything done, so I'm not going away anytime soon. Don't you go away.
Senator Lindsey Graham, we're almost out of time. Tonight, 7 p.m. Central Time, prayvotestand.org/townhall. What can people expect to hear tonight?
The pro-life community demanding that we take a stand in Washington. This is not a states' rights issue. This is a human rights issue. You're going to hear tonight, I think, a loud voice from the pro-life community that we want you there in Washington fighting for the unborn.
Is that why you came all the way to Iowa?
I came. It ain't easy to get here, folks. But I came. I'm glad I came. I'm turning around, going back, but I wouldn't have missed it.
Lindsey Graham, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.